Good morning, traders. It's Tuesday, January 15th. Taking a look at the charts, let's look at the major indexes here to start off. This is the SP 500 30-minute chart. This is the daily chart on the right-hand side. And more or less what we're looking at is the last couple trading sessions, we've seen the bars go orange. They were trading red, which means we are in a downward bias. Orange means we're more neutral. In a short-term basis, it's showing that we should have a little bit of a pop potentially today, and then it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a downward bias. If we look at the daily chart, actually it's very similar in terms of the daily cycles. Looks like we've got maybe an up day or so, followed by a little bit of a pullback before it starts to head higher again for some potential little blow off top. I do feel as though the market is potentially going to roll over and have a more significant correction, and we could very much so still have a double dip in the market. So it's going to be interesting how things unfold. Overall, the momentum is shifting to the upside. And if we take a look at the, let's take a look at the price action on the spike chart here. This is the 10-minute chart, and more or less we've had a series of spikes and gaps that have happened recently. Yesterday in pre-market trading, we had this gap down in price that was going to open right about here. Just carry that forward. We had this gap in price. I talked about in the video how this level right across here was going to likely be a very significant resistance zone for price to come up, and that is exactly where price ended up coming and stalling out for the session yesterday. It filled most of the gap, but this final little pop and push to the upside, just there's high volume resistance through this area, which is why I was looking at this as being that would be a pretty good gap fill if we get it, and that's exactly where it did. Hit it several times, and in overnight trading, we kind of pushed back up into that area. Now today we were relatively flat on the market. The market closed right here yesterday, and the market's trading slightly higher, so not really a gap. It's in there, but we do have a price spike to the upside. So you can see our first short-term target, about 30%, and then more or less we'll have 50% and 100% fill. And we're looking for price to potentially continue to have a little push up this morning, which is based on our short-term cycle analysis as well, pointing to higher prices. Now let's just jump over to bonds real quick. Bonds up 0.2%, holding at the 20-day moving average. And the big question is, are they going to break through here? You can see our cycle analysis pointing to potential weakness and a breakdown, which means we would see a little bit of a pop in the dollar or confidence in the market where people move out of the risk off safe havens, and they move into the risk on equities play. So we'll see how that unfolds. If you look at this, our trending chart here, we're still green bars. We've come down, we've touched this 20-day moving average, we gapped higher, faded back down over the last session, back down to the 20-day. It is showing a little bit of a pop today, bias for bonds, which we are going to see a little bit of a gap up. It is trading slightly higher this morning. Looking forward, though, we could continue to see a little bit of a sideways as it maybe starts to kind of roll over and break down through this 20-day moving average we see up here on the daily chart. Looking over at, let's look at the US dollar index. The dollar trading higher this morning. Obviously, it's a little bit oversold, and I think we'll see it pop up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a quick kind of pop. We do have a couple gaps in here where price kind of gap lower, gap lower, gapped up, and then gap down. Usually we kind of drift into those gaps, so a little bit higher today, but overall the bias is still pointing to the downside. You can see how we had to cycle down, price sold off, we had a couple day bounce, and we are back into a negative bias in the market. So we could see the dollar start to roll over and help boost precious metals going forward here. Taking a look at gold, gold's still holding up in this very tight pennant formation. Our cycles have been showing that we're likely in for some type of increased volatility as the gold market's a little overdone based on cycle analysis. It's stuck under this 1300 area, very strong resistance area. It's still holding its ground extremely well at the 5-day. The 20 days slowly coming up to catch it, and we'll see if it can pop and break and start to have a run going higher. But overall, when we've got mixed cycles, when the trend is up but we've got a cycle moving down, we can see price just trade sideways, or it could start to just become increased volatility and chop around until the cycle has a more significant low, or even over here, and then it'll create a pop and consolidate some more and create another pop. So overall, the trend here for gold is higher. It's in a bullish formation. And if we take a look at silver, same thing, tight little bull flag, and we're just it looks like it's fighting this falling trend. So you get cycle skew. When the trend is up but a cycle is down, doesn't mean price is going to sell off. It just means it's going to consolidate. It's going to struggle to move higher until we get to this time frame, another 4 or 5 sessions from now, when this cycle bottoms out, we could see this extend and move up for the second half of the move up into the 17 area. Looking at gold miners like GDXJ continues to hold up. It's going to open flat on the session, showing we should have a little bit of an upward bias in the next couple of days as price tries to consolidate and hold up here. It is at its first major resistance zone, so it is struggling, but we'll see if it can get some life behind it. And I think a lot of it will have to do with the US dollar. If it rolls over and starts to head lower, that'll help precious metals. Looking at natural gas, down 1%. Huge gap and go yesterday. It rallied up significantly. Today's had a pop to the upside, and you can see it's starting to move back down. Looks like a little bit of an overdone kind of reversal candle where it's gapped higher, ran into resistance through the heart of this consolidation here, and it's kind of pushed up, and now sellers are stepping in with some increased volume. So it is more or less trying to put in a significant bottom. We might see it consolidate for a day or two as the 5-day moving average starts to come up to it, and 5-day moving average, if you're in a strong momentum move, will act as support each time. So we could start to see a 1 or 2 day sidestep followed by some follow through buying up into this 420 area. Looking at crude oil continuing to flag as well. The commodities in general are all in a bull flag. They've all had a nice multi-week run to the upside. They're consolidating, and they're on the verge of having a pop. And typically near the end of a bull market, we see commodities start to outperform the rest of the market. So everything is trying to put in a bottom. If we start to see commodities break out above their current bull flags, that will be a sign that I think money is moving into some physical assets and outperforming the rest of the stock market, and that'll be this pretty good warning sign that the bear market is not far away, and it'll just be another few months, I think, before we see a leg down in the equities market. Last but not least, here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin was looking like it was forming a bottoming formation, looked like it was trying to form this inverse head and shoulders with a falling neckline. It still could be, but overall, it kind of rolled over. It's chopping around. We'll see if it can form some type of rounding formation. At this point, it looks like maybe it could build a little base, continue to move up here, and then potentially break out of this rounding formation and have a pop somewhere into this area. This is the Bitcoin Investment Trust Fund, so it's not actual price of Bitcoin. But overall, that mimics the price fairly close. So we'll see if it can get some traction here and start to move up. Overall, the trend is still down. It hasn't broken really. It's broken this short-term significant pivot high. But again, this is the real kind of standout significant high that price really needs to break through for it to really change momentum to the upside in a big way. Anyways, that's it for this morning. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.